There we go. So we're going to be recording today, and then this session is going to be available online for your records, and then we'll also have copies of slides available in case you want to refer back to anything that we go over today. Any technical difficulties today, if you want to email Mark Kamey, he's our community impact manager here at the Community Foundation. He'd be happy to help you. His email address and the office phone number is up on the screen. So please just give a call if you need any help today during our session. Our agenda for today, we're going to be going over some grant opportunity basics. We're going to be looking at some of the pieces of the application and some of those expectations. We're going to look at the financial information that is necessary to submit with the application, and then we're also going to look at a few post submissions. So after you've hit that submit button, what you can expect. And then for those who may be new to our grant process, you're welcome to stick around and learn a little bit about Foundant, the online grants management system we use for our application. So all of our applications are online, as well as all of our reporting. So we hope to see you there. Well, first, for those who may not be aware, the Community Foundation of Frederick County, we are a nonprofit organization in Frederick County, and we connect people that care with causes that matter in order to create impact within Frederick County and surrounding areas. Our primary ways of doing this is providing scholarships to students and grants to area nonprofits, and our impact grant cycle is one of the ways in which we create that impact. So let's go ahead and start with grant opportunity basics. I will emphasize that at any point in time, if you want to stop me and ask questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and jump in. Mark is also going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions that come up there, he will also be happy to interrupt me as needed, because once I get in a role, I can just keep talking. And so please feel free to ask the questions while we're going through these things. So first and foremost, some important dates to keep on your calendar. The application period is August 15th through September 15th. We will be accepting applications through 11:59 on September 15th p.m. But please don't try and submit at 11:59 p.m. You never know what tech is going to do to you, and we also will not be available to help answer questions at that time. If you are awarded, or we will provide notifications either if you're awarded or if you're not awarded in the early part of November, possibly late October of this year. And then the spending period is January 1st through December 31st of 2024. That means that the grant dollars that we will be providing you need to be spent during the 1st of January to December during the calendar year of 2024. So we wouldn't be giving you a grant that could then be applied to dollars that you have already spent in like now or anytime between now and January 1st. Additionally, for our impact grants, we will have a very brief interim report that will be due in July, and then the final report will be due a month after the spending period closes. So those are just important things to keep on your calendar. Additionally, for our impact grants, like most of our grant cycles, eligible activities include things that are going on within Frederick County. There are a few funds where the opportunity expands outside of Frederick County, but those are specifically noted in the fund description. If it doesn't say anything about about being applicable to other counties or other parts of Maryland, then please know that we're specifically talking about we want you to be providing services within Frederick County that provide benefits to Frederick County residents. We do provide grants to a broad range of organizations, so 501c3s, as well as all the others listed here. If you have any questions about whether or not your organization in specific applies or is eligible, please let us know. We also are happy to work with organizations that are fiscally sponsored by another organization. Just let us know if you have any questions about that. Additionally, we do have some specific things for our nonprofits on the call. We ask that we do due diligence for these organizations as they apply, and we have 3 things that we look at. So we look at the IRS and if you're in good standing, and that means that you have filed your annual 990s and that the IRS still considers you a nonprofit tax exempt organization. And we look at that information through GuideStar. We also look at the Maryland Department of Assessment and Taxation. This is the Department of Maryland that you initially apply to become a legal entity within the state of Maryland, and it gives you permission to do business in the state of Maryland. And annual reports are due for this organization or for this department every year, and we look to see that those have been filed. And for the Maryland Secretary of State, as a nonprofit organization, you are required to register as a charity after your first full year of being in operation. And then after that, you are required to file your annual report. And so we will be looking at those particular things. On the application, and on our website, there are links to the places where we go to check this information. So I encourage you to check it before you click submit so that you know that you are in compliance on all of these sites. I will say that both the Maryland Department of Assessment and Taxation and the Secretary of State have a tendency to have pileups for filings and processing those filings. So please make sure to check soon and work with them if something isn't showing up that should be showing up. And if you have any questions about those forms and what that means, please let us know. So the broad overview for our impact grant cycle is that we have funding priorities and maximum grant amounts that vary per fund, and we'll take a look at what that means in a little bit. The minimum grant request is $500, so please don't ask for anything less than that. There are going to be specific funds that have less than $1,000 available. We will not split those dollars up to 2 different organizations, and so if a fund has less than $1,000, please just go ahead and request that entire amount. We also accept multiple applications for this under this grant opportunity. So you can submit 3, you can submit 20. It really just depends on what time and effort you have available for your organization and how many of the funds fit for what you're trying to do. Please know that there are links to apply, and all of this information is available on our website at frederickcountygives.org/grants. So let's talk a little bit about what we mean by funding priorities vary by fund and grant amounts vary by fund. So what's going to happen is we publish a list of available funds every year for the impact grant cycle. There'll be links to it on our website in the application. And there's going to be a list of funds that look similar to what you see on the screen in front of you. In yellow is the name of the fund. So the actual list isn't going to be color coordinated. I'm just showing, we just have colors here to help bring things, make things more apparent. So in yellow is the name of the fund. So every fund has a name, and that's going to be an important part of the application because you're going to have to choose which fund you're applying to. So you're going to have to know the name of the fund that you're applying to. So in red, you're going to see that this particular program supports programs serving youth. So this is basic criteria. If you're not an organization or your project doesn't serve youth, then you should not apply to this fund. So that is the threshold criteria. If you don't do this thing, then please don't apply to this particular fund. In gray, you're going to see a preference. For this particular fund, there's a preference for services for families with children with catastrophic illnesses. That just means that if your organization provides services to families with children with catastrophic illnesses, that you're going to be considered first. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be funded, because if you submit a bad application or it's not a viable project, then it won't necessarily get funded, but you will be considered first. And if it's a program that fits, then you will be considered before the programs that are just broader programs serving youth. In addition, you're going to see a number that's associated with the fund, and that money amount in green is the total amount of money that's available for that fund. So this is a made up number for this, so don't pay attention to this number. This is not the number, the amount of money that's available for the Hooper Fund this year. But if you were going to be submitting an application to the Hooper Fund, you would not submit an application requesting $20,000 from the Hooper Fund, because the Hooper Fund only has $15,000 available. So that is something to pay attention to. And as you're considering the different funds that are available to be applied to, you're going to want to make sure that you're considering the maximum amounts that are available per each of the fund. You're also going to see next to the money amount that there's either going to be a P, an IN, or both of those initials next to that money amount. And that means that these that this particular fund supports program support applications and individual support applications. And we'll get into what that means a little bit more, but program is basically, it supports an overall program that an organization is putting on, and then an individual support application supports an individual family that the nonprofit or the eligible organization is working with. And we'll go into some examples of that in a little bit. So any questions right now? No? Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the some of the grant component or the application components and expectations. Again, some of the steps that you're going to be going to want to take. The first and most important step is that you're going to want to read the impact available funds list. And again, those colors that are on the screen now align with the colors that were on the slide previous to this. You're going to want to look at the funds where your project meets the criteria. You're going to want to especially look at the funds where you may meet any of the fund preferences. You're going to need to know the name of the fund so you're welcome to submit each application, and each application needs to be tied to a specific fund. So you're going to need to know which fund, the fund name for the application that you're going to be applying to. You're also going to need to know how much money you're requesting from the fund. And then you're going to have to choose whether it's going to be a program support or an individual support application. But please pay attention, because not all funds support, and there are some funds that are specific. They will only do programs or they'll only do individuals. And so please pay attention to what may be available for that particular fund. Some pro tips.
Diana, just sorry to
yes.
interrupt you. A good question came in from Abby, is when does the fund list get published?
So the fund list will be available in the application. So August 15th, that will be available if we're able to get it up on the website beforehand. We try and do that as well, but it will definitely be available on the 15th. So yes, Abby, that's a great question. So any other questions right now?
See, Josh is raising his hand.
So Josh, please feel free.
Yeah, I would understand our board mentioned there might be
I'm sorry, I don't know. I think there might be.
I'm on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'm not used to talking.
That's okay.
Yeah, I was told by our board that, you know, there might be some grants for capital improvement or funding, but I looked at your different grants, and I don't believe that is the case. Can you confirm that?
For the most part, our impact grants do not support capital funding needs for organizations. Generally, we don't have, as the community foundation, a lot of dollars that are available for that. Specifically within the impact grant list, there is an historic preservation fund that is specifically around supporting the preservation of historic buildings within the community, and that can be a capital project, but it's generally not going to fund a significant portion of the capital project. It's usually that fund usually has between $5,000 and $10,000 available. But that's really one of the only capital pots of capital dollars that we have available in this particular grant opportunity. In our other major grants opportunity, the strategic grants that's open right now, we're only doing program operation funding and no capital funding.
So you're really more for programming, serving the community in Frederick County.
Yes, that is correct. And if you have specific questions about how about what funding may be available to your particular organization, we'd be happy to take that question offline. So just get in contact with us later and we'll set up a time to talk. So any other questions right now? Not seeing any.
And one more question came in, and this is from BA. Can you give a brief explanation of the main difference between strategic and impact grants?
So our strategic grants are grants that are related to our strategic initiatives, and those strategic initiatives are responding to substance use disorder, supporting families with children, and preparing for a growing aging population. That application is open now and is open until August 15th. If you have a program that fits within one of those three categories, you're welcome to submit under that particular application. Just know that it's a much more rigorous application, and you're going to be asked to provide plans on how you evaluate your program, and then any of the progress or impact that you've had within the community already. So it's so if you're interested in that particular grant application, please let us know after, and we'd be happy to talk to you more about that. There's also plenty of information on our website if you'd like to look at that there as well. So our impact grants are basically everything else. So any other questions right now? Okay. So again, some of the tips you want to keep in mind, if you are submitting multiple grants, you're going to want to know that you're going to want to make each project name unique for the applications that you submit. So because you're going to end up with a list of anywhere from 2 to 10 applications, and if those names are exactly the same, because you have a chance to choose the project name for each of the applications that you submit, and if you submit the project name the same every time, it's going to be very difficult for you as well as for us to keep track of which application you're submitting a report to and for what purpose. And so we've seen organizations submit project name A / Hooper Fund, project name B, or project named A / the Mark Kamey Fund. So it just depends on, but you can use the naming conventions that you want. Just know that it makes things a lot easier on your end to keep track of. If you are submitting multiple applications for a similar project, to make those field names unique or name fields unique. So please also note that all of our communication will be sent via email. So make sure that your organizational profile and contact information is founded in is updated. And please also add the administrator at grantinterface.com to your safe sender list or equivalent. This is the address that all of the email will be coming from. And so we know we get caught in spam, especially as your organization gets bigger, or your spam filters get stronger. This is often caught up in that. Please also know that within the application, our character limits may be large, but your response does not need to be. We just leave it there in case there is something in particular that needs significant dialogue around. But please just include enough information that somebody who may not be familiar with your organization and the work that it does can understand what you're doing and the impact that it's having. We always ask you to avoid jargon when possible, but please explain it if you can't avoid it. And please, for any abbreviations that you're going to use, please spell them out for the first time. Our grants committee members are very knowledgeable folks from within our local community, but each field has their own abbreviations and what they mean. I grew up with a professional chef in my family, so it took me a long time to realize that the CIA could be something other than the Culinary Institute of America. So just please recognize that different abbreviations mean different things to different folks. Please also note that we have within our application, we partner with Candid GuideStar so that you can click a button on the application and it will fill in some of the questions that we ask within the application. So GuideStar is an online database that collects information about nonprofit organizations. It will automatically have the name of your organization and your status with the IRS and any filed 990s that you may have provided. And if you want to claim your profile on GuideStar as your organization, you can include additional information on there. Please note that an increasing number of local philanthropists in Frederick County are starting to use more of the GuideStar fields within their applications. So if you want to claim your organization and start filling some of that information out, it will make your application process easier as the years go by, because this is going to be something that will be incorporated more and more. And if you have any questions about it, you can go to guidestar.org. So let's talk a little bit about project support or individual support applications. There's going to be a question on the application that's going to ask you the question that's in front of you on the screen. So please select whether your application is in support of a project or in support of an identified individual or household. And you have two available answers. You can select project support application or individual support application. It's a project support application. You're going to explain how the project that you're doing fits the purpose of the fund. You're going to explain how that particular project or program will have impact within the community. And then you're going to describe the activities of the project and how they will achieve the impact or change. So it's basically, what are you doing and how is it going to change things? And then how does it fit with the fund that you're applying to? So an example of this may look like this. So, and I'm going to read this in case anyone is at a place where they can't see this particular slide. So our organization provides housing stability support services. Each year, 15% of our clients indicate that a catastrophic illness has destabilized their finances and threatens their ability to maintain housing. We are asking for funds to pay for rent, food, transportation, and/or medical expenses for households dealing with catastrophic illnesses. So this is a project that knows it will have these expenses in the future, and they're asking for money to pay for those general expenses, even though they don't know who exactly or which household is going to benefit from it at that particular time. In contrast, we have our individual support applications. And this is going to explain, and you're going to explain how the particular individual or household meets the fund criteria that you're applying to. You're going to explain how that particular household was selected for support, and then you're going to provide documentation of the expenses that you're trying to support for that particular family. So it could be rent, medical bills. It just depends on the nature of the fund and the needs of the family. And that looks like this. Again, I'm going to read the slide. So our organization provides housing stability support services. So it's exactly the same program, but in this case, it's for a specific family. Sarah S. and her 4 children recently graduated from our traditional housing program into permanent housing of their own. One of Sarah's children has since been diagnosed with leukemia. Because of lost work hours for Sarah and mounting medical expenses for her child, Sarah may lose her current housing. We're asking for funds to pay for rent, food, transportation, and related medical expenses for Sarah S. and her family. So that just shows you the difference where you can have similar programs that are asking for either program support or individual support, depending on the needs of the project and also the needs of the families that they're working with. So any questions about this before we go on to the financial information? I will add for project support projects, that is just one example of what a project could be. And those projects descriptions are going to be very different depending on what the fund is. So please don't think that you have to be dealing with housing support or catastrophic illnesses or anything like that. That's just a specific example that we're using here. In the training, our scope of services that are supported under the impact grant cycle is much broader than just what these examples may show. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the financial information that you're going to have to provide within the application. And we ask for both a project or what has your organization done with money in the past, and what does that look like? And so there are 3 different levels that we'll talk about of what that organizational financial information may include. So specifically for your project or program budget, there is no required budget format. If your organization already has something that you use, please feel free to submit that. We don't need you to do anything specific for us. However, we do need to make sure that the following information is included. So whatever format you're using, we need to know all the income and all the expenditures that will be involved in this particular project. It's great to know for income if it's committed or pending. So if you've applied for it, if you already have, but don't know the result of that application, or if you know that the dollars have already been committed. And also we need to know expenditures by line item or category. So you can't just put, housing program and $15,000. We need to know of the housing program, how much of that is going towards salary, how much is going towards direct payments for security deposits or food for the families, all of those different things that may be involved in the program. And then if you are requesting to spend money on a particular, the grant dollars on a particular thing, if you could provide a vendor quote, that's great. We know that a lot of organizations are ordering things from Amazon or other places that aren't traditional vendors. So even if you just include a snapshot of or a screenshot of what you see on Amazon that you're going to be ordering from that particular thing, that's great. But please know that we don't, this is only if it's a significant amount of money that's going towards a particular thing. So if you have questions about what that threshold might be, please let us know. Our grants cannot pay for non-cash expenses, and it can't pay for unrelated operating expenses. So if you are an organization and you apply to receive a grant that goes towards your tree restoration project, you cannot then use those dollars to support your marsh restoration project. So they're going to be different things. And so you want to make sure that that is that's accounted for within your books. Also, the non-cash expenses can be things like, oh, the word is escaping me right now. Sorry, my mind just went blank, but like in-kind expenses, those sorts of things that come, or depreciation, that's the word I was looking for. So it cannot, we cannot pay for your depreciation expenses. And one thing to note, please remember that your budget helps tell your story. So the more detail that you provide in the budget, the more we know. It's just another aspect of you helping us tell the story of how money is being used within the community to help support your project and impact that it's making. So the more information we know about your project, the better our grants committee is able to make determinations about where the grant dollars should be applied. So a couple of other tips for the budget. Whatever budget document you submit, you want to make sure that you're including the name of your organization within that budget or within that piece of paper, because that is a separate thing that you upload into the system. It can be, it all isn't always married to that application. So if a grants committee member has pulled up a lot of applications and a lot of attachments all at the same time, it may be confusing if they see a spreadsheet or a PDF and it doesn't have the name of that organization on it, they won't know where to put it, and it just creates confusion for everyone. So your name on there is great. Also, please make note of the period of time that you are submitting the budget for. If it's a 6-month period because your project is going to be done in 6 months and that's all that you were applying for, that's great. If you're going to be spending the dollars over a full fiscal year, that is fine as well. So just let us know the period that your budget aligns with. For the expenses, again, we would like the line items. These are just examples of line items. You use whatever line items are within your chart of accounts. Make your bookkeeper and accountant happy. And then any notes can be used to explain salary levels or really effort hours. Like, is this 100% of someone's position is going to be used to support this project? Is it only 25% of their time? And any other details that may be relevant for the work that for the project you're trying to support. And again, if you have any projected incomes or deficits for the program, because that sometimes shows up for budgets as you're projecting into the future, just explain those. So you project that there's going to be this income, but we know that that income is actually going to be cash flow for the project as we're launching it in the year after, or we're projecting this deficit, but we know that we're going to be doing a new fundraising project and during the course of the year. We're not sure how to predict how much is coming in, but we are anticipating that money from that is going to support this. You know, whatever is happening within your organization, we just would like you to explain it, because it's easier for you to explain than it is for our volunteer grants committee members to guess why there's an income or a deficit and how the organization is going to deal with that. So now we get to the organizational financial information. So again, the budget was looking forward. How are you going to spend the money? The organizational financial information is looking backwards. How has your organization been doing? So if you're an organization that has less than $300,000 in annual charitable contributions, we have a financial form that's going to be available within the application for you to complete. And it's fairly simple. It's basically a profit and loss statement, or not a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet, and with a little bit more information on there. But we want our grants committee members to be able to compare apples to apples. For organizations that have between $300,000 and $750,000 in annual charitable contributions, you'll be required to submit an independent financial review. And this is when an outside CPA comes in and looks at your books and says, yes, this all seems like it fits within standard accounting practices. But it's less of a rigorous review than the financial audit. So in those organizations that have $750,000 or more in annual charitable contributions, you're required to submit that audit. And that's where they go in and actually look at the backup documentation for all of the transactions that have happened, or for either all or a sample of the transactions that have happened within your organization. So if you have questions about where you might fit in on that, please let us know, and we're happy to help answer that question. And also, if you are in a fiscal sponsorship relationship, those can be very, which one of these you're going to fill out can depend on what the nature of the fiscal sponsorship is. So talk to us about that and what may be most appropriate for you to submit. Okay. Any other questions right now? Okay, so we're going to go on and talk a little bit about what happens after you submit the application. So again, this is looking at the timeline. So end of October, beginning of November, we're going to have approval denial notifications sent. If you do receive a denial and you would like to talk to us about what the feedback was around your application, please let us know. We'd be happy to talk to you about that. We will, if you are awarded a grant, then we will have grant agreements and other paperwork that is due. Again, all of that information is going to be sent out to you via email from that administrator at grantinterface.com email address. Again, January 1st, the grant year begins. The grant distributions are all going to be in one upfront payment, and that check will come to you in January, February of 2024. In July again, and sorry, that should be July 31st, not July 30th. The interim report is going to be due, and again, it's very brief, just letting us know how you're doing and if you're having any issues and would like to talk about it. And then that's the end of the grant year, and then there's going to be a final report due. So it's basically the cycle of our impact grants. So, and this just provides a little bit more detail about that. So emphasizing that it's going to be a single payment. We will be asking for program and fiscal reporting at the end of the year. We're not going to ask you to submit proof of expenses and proof of receipt, or proof of payment and proof of expenses at the time of reporting. But if your reporting comes back and we have questions, we may ask to see that level of detail depending on what our questions might be. The grantee, you guys, if you don't spend all the money, then you will be responsible for returning any of the unused funding at the end of the program, at the end of the grant period. And so if you have questions during the next month, our community impact team is available to help answer those questions. We are all listed on here. Myself and Mark are going to be your primary contacts. Sonia is available in case Mark and I are out of the office, but for the most part, she'll probably be taking your information and for us to get back to you at another time. But Mark and I should be able to handle your question between the two of us. And at this point, we'll be going on to our foundant portion of the day. So are there any other questions right now? I'm going to stop sharing for a second. If I can remember, hold on, I'm going to try to do a couple of things. We're going to stop recording at this point.